I'm Thomas Umstead Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Shurker Jr.
And we have a lot of news to cover today. But the first thing I wanted to cover is the flood update. As a lot of you probably saw on authormedia.social, I live in Central Texas. I don't actually live in Austin proper anymore. We live on the outskirts, and the part of Austin that we live in is very near where this flooding happened. My family ranch flooded. It was on one of the rivers that flooded, the Guadalupe River, where the worst flooding was. It's a river I've been to. In fact, I've been to a camp that's like 2 camps over from Camp Mystic. Camp Mystic's a girls' camp. My family has been sending girls to this camp for over 50 years, and so I know what these floods are like. And if you haven't experienced this, I want to kind of walk you through what it's like, because there's a lot of people who are new to Texas, and I think that's part of the reason why the death count was so high. People don't understand just how dangerous rain is in hill countries. So we get very intense rain. We actually get the same amount of rain in the Austin area as they get in the Seattle area. The difference is that we have 300 days of sun. So during the 30 days when it's not sunny, it's raining. And for about 10 of those days, it's raining really hard. It's what we would call a toad strangler, where it rains so fast that the water isn't absorbed into the ground. It just kind of sits on the top of the ground for a little while, just long enough to strangle toads. Not really, because toads are amphibious.
Texans are going to have really weird metaphors, people. Okay, I can't account for it. I have trying to work out the etymology of where this crap comes from. I can't help you.
I don't know where the phrase "toad strangler" came from, but it's a phrase I've heard from Texans my whole life as I grew up in Texas. And I will say, at night, if you're like shining a flashlight, it's going to look like it's flooding in a regular rainstorm. And so it's almost impossible to tell the difference between a toad strangler, really intense rain, and flooding water. And so like on low water crossings or even just dry roads, there's often a gauge, so you can actually see how deep the water is, because it's very deceptive. And so if you don't know how flash floods work, it can be very dangerous. And this was like the worst possible weekend for this to happen, because the Guadalupe River is a really popular place to camp. So there was a lot of people just along the river in a tent. And they didn't get permission. They didn't pay for a camping fee. They just found a patch of ground and they set their tent down, because this is America. But the downside is it's why the number of missing people keep going up and up, because we're keeping finding folks who are like, does anybody know where so-and-so is? Like, oh, they went camping. Where did they go camping? It's like, oh, well, they went camping to the Guadalupe. So now we're trying to see if we can find them. And the rain here can be really intense. And I remember giving somebody a tour of the Austin area a while back, and I was like, yeah, it doesn't rain here very often, but when it does rain, people die. And the person laughed, thinking I was joking. But it's like, well, no, flash floods really can kill people, and they really do. Yeah. And the reason why it's so dangerous is that you're not just getting the 6 inches of rain that fell on your head. You're also getting all of the rain from everything uphill from you. And if the ground doesn't absorb the moisture, which it doesn't in the hill country, because it's clay and rock, all that water just slides down really, really fast. So there's a couple of opportunities here for you to help if you want. One is to donate to adrn.org. It's the Austin Disaster Relief Network. It's a network of Austin area churches that help in disasters. It's been around for a long time. I've worked with them in the past. They've done trainings at churches that I've been a part of. They're a really great organization. They're beloved here in Austin. P. Terry's, which is a local burger chain, did a promotion for ADRN yesterday, and the lines to get burgers were like a mile down the road. And the police were like having to help direct traffic, because we really like helping our fellow Texans in a disaster, but we also really like eating hamburgers.
Charity burgers.
Yeah. So I really like ADRN. We've been supporting them as a family for a really long time. And if you support ADRN for any amount of money and email me your receipt, I will give you a free month of the Patron Toolbox. So just email thomas@authormedia.com your receipt if you want a free month of the Patron Toolbox. If you're already a patron, I'll give you like a link that will activate a free month. If you're not a patron, if you're already a patron, in order to get the free month, you'll have to let your patronage lapse. And then you can activate your free month.
There's a second way that you can help here, and I'm going to take over this one. I was homeschooled as a kid, okay? How did I learn anything? I read books and I played Age of Empires 2. I learned all my world history from Age of Empires 2. I learned most of my geography from Age of Empires 2. But I also learned how to survive certain things from reading books. So there is a dearth of knowledge right now on how to survive a flash flood. Why? Nobody writes about it. It doesn't show up in any shows or any movies, so nobody actually has the context to apply any kind of knowledge into it. So what you can do in your stories, especially if you're in hill country in Texas, this is a problem in Arizona, anywhere around a mountain really is going to, that has a lot of rainfall is going to have flash floods in it. Include a flash flood and have the character just know what to do, and they go through the checklist in their head. Okay, get height. Make sure you get away from the water. Try to go uphill if you can. Stay away from channels. All kinds of different things that you can do to survive, and what that will do is will passively educate your readership on how to survive flash floods.
And it adds drama to your fantasy story. They're traveling through some hill country. A flood comes out of nowhere, and one of the members of the party is washed downstream, and now they're racing to rescue this party member before the orcs find him. There's a lot of fun ways to work in flash floods, and it's important to understand the difference between a regular flood and a flash flood. So when people hear the word flood, they typically are thinking hurricane. And with a hurricane, the most important thing to do is to evacuate. And during a flash flood, evacuations kill people. And this is one of the things the press, who just doesn't understand flash floods, they're like, why wasn't there evacuations warnings earlier? Why didn't they evacuate? And it's interesting watching these Texans, because the Texans don't understand, interacting with the press, how little the press understand about floods. So in 1987, the exact same river flooded. The Guadalupe River flooded. And the word went out, do not evacuate, do not evacuate. This is a flash flood, head to high ground. Well, one of the camps was like, no, it's dry, we can evacuate. And so they loaded up everybody in school buses, and they started heading on the road. Well, the flood was so fast that the back two school buses got caught in the water and got trapped with the rising water. So the front six school buses escaped. The back two got stuck. They're trying to get the kids out of the school buses. The water's going higher and higher. The kids are holding on to the school buses. The kids are starting to get washed down. A lot of this was captured on camera. A news helicopter was like trying to fish children out of the water. It's like the best thing the media has ever done. It's like they stopped reporting on the story. They became a part of the story, and they started rescuing children. And then the most tragic thing happened. They ran out of gas, and they had to leave children in the river as this news helicopter left. And so for Texans, that's the story going through our heads. Like, you have to be very careful about evacuating. You don't evacuate from a flash flood. You head to high ground.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in Houston and there's a hurricane coming in, evacuating is exactly what you do.
Yes.
And you want to evacuate early. So flash floods, it's a great way to add a man against nature plot. I think it's going to be very resonant, especially with as much press as the story has gotten with all the missing girls from Camp Mystic. I think it will be more zeitgeisty. Like, there are certain natural disasters capture people's attention. Like in the 1980s and early 1990s, everyone was terrified of quicksand. Like, quicksand's not actually very dangerous.
I was misinformed as a child as to
Yes.
how
But like,
perilous quicksand was going to be in my life personally.
you play Zelda, you can swim in the water, no problem. You step in quicksand for 2 seconds and you
were gone,
right to the bottom,
man.
and then just restarting over
It's
with
over.
a new. So anyway, I think that's enough on this, but this is an interesting opportunity for you as an author to help be a part of the solution just with storytelling, and in a way that could fix that sagging center of your story. If the middle of your story is kind of sagging a little bit, it just started raining. And a bunch of your characters don't think it's a problem, but one of your characters is like, I think this is a problem. And then suddenly there's an inch of water everywhere, and they start trying to evacuate, but now it's 6 inches. And drama and excitement.
Well,
And your book has just gotten better.
There's tons of ways to do that too, because I mean, a natural disaster is not in any way connected to the plot. It happens, so it doesn't have to be led up to. It doesn't. You can even just make a bad situation worse with it, which I do all the time. Okay, how can I make this worse? Okay, a baby's gonna have an asthmatic attack in the middle of my zombie assault. oh no, like, so a flash flood is really good for that. You can also emphasize certain characters' competence levels with it, bring out maybe a minor character that wasn't doing too much that you need to give more of a spotlight on, emphasize the Californians that shouldn't be in Texas anyway, that have no idea what they're doing, and now they're screaming, and now the Texans have to show them what to do to get out or whatever,
Or
which
it's a
Texans
way.
love. If you're writing to Texans, you absolutely need to have that because they hate Californians.
It's also a way to, if you have two characters that are not getting along very well, or two factions that are
Oh,
in
yeah.
conflict, but you want to bring them together for some character moments, add a flash flood, because suddenly, whatever the conflict was, the interpersonal conflict leading into it, if one person's, you know, holding onto a tree trying to climb higher, and another person's trying to rescue them, all of those interpersonal differences go.
Yeah,
away.
it's the friendship T-shirt.
Yeah.
Like we're in a tree, stuck together now. Hey, what you want to talk about?
I didn't even think about that. That's a great idea. You trap two of your characters in a tree during a flash flood, and they're forced to talk or not talk, and work together or not work together. You're the author. You can explore that. That's a really
I know.
fun.
And make it worse. Throw alligators in there, man. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
The world is your oyster in the flash flood. But anyway, it's a great method for educating your readers passively on how to actually survive real world stuff if you actually put in real survival tips. Please do your research and don't tell people wrong.
Yeah,
Please
don't tell people to evacuate down the road, because roads cross rivers, and
make
rivers
sure you
flash
run
flood.
downhill, everybody. It's easier.
So don't look at a map. Look around you. Find the highest point and then go up. In other news, actually some author media news, tickets are now on sale for the Novel Marketing Conference. We have about 80 standard tickets available and about 20 super tickets available. It's actually a little bit less than that because I gave patrons early access to buy tickets. So if you want to come to the conference, get your tickets now before the tickets sell out. Novelmarketingconference.com is where you can go. We'll have a lot more information about the conference in the future, but I wanted to give you a heads up so that you can get your chance to get tickets before it's too late.
And Thomas might almost accidentally let me speak this year.
We are thinking about giving Jonathan a microphone. God help us all.
Oh, it's going to be bad. Anyway, independent publishers are fed up with Barnes & Noble. According to Publishers Weekly, there has just been it's a whole long article. I'm going to summarize it for you. It's no surprise that indie booksellers are pretty frustrated with book chains. Barnes & Noble, this story is going to be about Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble has changed its book shelving strategy. They claim that they're trying to narrow their selection and get rid of books that aren't moving anywhere, books that shouldn't be there, to make room for books that should be there. But the ones it's tending to hurt are indie publishers. Okay, so that'll be indie authors and then the small presses who are putting out more niche category books, like a lot of your how-tos, a lot of your nonfiction, a lot of your stuff that people are looking for. Barnes & Noble's position is that these books can be found on Amazon, and so we don't need to shelve these. Okay, because when you're dealing with physical space, that you have a limit on how much physical space you have, how many books you can cram into it. And while it looks like Barnes & Noble has plenty of space, compared to the number of books out there, they do not. Now, one thing that he is claiming is that he's not targeting indies to keep them off the shelves. He's trying to say, well, we're giving more latitude to our regional and local bookstore managers to put whatever they want on the shelves. I feel like that's ignoring the reality of the way middle management works, which is they're going to do what the big dogs are doing because they want their numbers to go up.
And they only have latitude to select books from a pre-approved list from corporate.
Right.
So it's not really latitude. So Barnes & Noble skews very much to the left. In fact, it's kind of a joke. My wife today was at a homeschool book fair where we're actually doing our book shopping, because Barnes & Noble is very far to the left. But let's say there's a Barnes & Noble in a more conservative area and they want to feature the Tuttle Twins. If Tuttle Twins aren't on the list from corporate, they don't actually have latitude. They can pick if they want A is for activist or B is for activist, but they can't pick if they want the Tuttle Twins if they don't have that pre-approval. And corporate has reduced the number of buyers, and then which is the number of humans who are making those purchasing decisions to decide what goes on the list. And so they're not they're not necessarily intentionally trying to target small presses or medium presses, but the result is if there's only one or two buyers at corporate, they only have time in the day for a certain number of conversations with sellers. And so they're going to have the conversations with the biggest sellers. And so the smaller presses are going to get squeezed out. And what this is going to do is just push indies more and more to Amazon, which is where they already are. So in some ways, this is not
what
really
Barnes & Noble wants. I mean, the guy who runs Barnes & Noble literally said this. It's like, if there's a problem with shelving, you guys can go to Amazon. It's a different distributor, and it's just not where we are positioning ourselves right now.
In a big shift from where they were 5 years ago. Because 5 years ago, they were, well, if we don't have it, you can order it from our website. Really pushing BarnesandNoble.com, really pushing the Nook as an alternative to a Kindle. And I think that maybe they're giving up on this strategy where somebody's going to buy a book on the internet. I mean, they're either going to go to Amazon or they're going to go to thrift books. You know, I don't know if Barnes & Noble's able to beat thrift books. We do a massive amount of shopping on thrift books. So they've got all the old classic children's books that my wife likes to collect. And all of our books have some other child's name on the front. Or most of them anyway.
I don't know. If I want a board game at $15 more than it should be, I'll go to Barnes & Noble. I do know a lot of people who do their discovery shopping at Barnes & Noble. Lately, I've been doing interviews from my Intel background. I've been doing interviews with readers to see why and where they buy books, what their path looks like. Do you go to Barnes & Noble to casually shop and find a book, or do you go in there specifically to find a book? Do you go to a specific section? What does your path look like through the shelves? Do you hit the coffee shop first or after? Do you look at the cover? Do you look at the description? Do you look at the little suggestions that the staff puts onto the shelf itself? What is it that's causing you to make your book buying decisions? And I'm pulling in data, and I'm thinking about airing these interviews for particular subgenres. Like, you read, let's say you read Camille Elliott. Okay, and so I'm going to do an interview with somebody who reads historical Regency romance fiction and see exactly why they buy the books they do and what path they take and stuff like that. So this is really important data to let you know structurally how Barnes & Noble is going to deal with your book. So if you're traditionally published, you really got to be, like, honestly, Big Five and a big deal with the Big Five to include you in the conversation with the book buyer for Barnes & Noble, if you're going to get shelved in Barnes & Noble. It's still possible to get those local events, get those signing events. I still see tons of those happening. They love their signing events.
If money is your goal, the two paths to money are either Big Five publisher, big advance, so 5-digit advance or 6-digit advance, or indie. The small press, medium-sized press, they're often just an indie author who's doing it for somebody else. So it's all of the downsides of both without either of the upsides. Or it's a medium-sized press that's now getting squeezed with these new changes, and they're really struggling to find a space for themselves, particularly if they don't have their own relationship with readers. So there are some presses that have like a subscription program or a really vibrant focus where they have a really strong genre and they have a readership that just says, shut up and take my money anytime they publish a book. But most small presses are not like that. Most medium presses are not like that. They just take whatever the acquisitions editor thinks is a good book, and there's no particular focus on a particular kind of reader.
And they go bankrupt in a few years.
And they go bankrupt in a few years, which leads us to our next story. Jonathan?
Is Quirk Books going bankrupt? Also from Publishers Weekly, the Philadelphia-based indie publisher Quirk Books, which rose to prominence 23 years ago as the creator of the Worst Case Scenario brand, has paused its publishing program and laid off a significant portion of its staff. These are just indicators that a company is downsizing either to try to extend its own shelf life, or they're just offloading assets so they can file for bankruptcy and make everything as fluid as possible for that process. It's just something that's really common with indie publishers. Even if you're successful at one point, it doesn't mean you're going to stay successful. those are my thoughts on
not
it.
a lot to cover here, but I predicted more bankruptcies amongst traditional publishers, and more bankruptcies have happened.
Speaking of another of Thomas's predictions, you don't need social media to be successful. How do we know this? Well, the latest story is that Jurassic World Rebirth is #1 with Scarlett Johansson, who is anti-social media. That's right, Scarlett Johansson stays off of social media. She wants to keep her personal life and her work life separate. She actually even refuses to take selfies with fans so that she stays off of social media. And I see the net result as everybody likes Scarlett Johansson. Why? They don't get to see as much of her, so they don't see the mistakes that she makes. Whereas people who are permanently online, I just hate them because I'm like, dude, shut your mouth.
The more I see of a celebrity, particularly actors, the less I tend to like that actor. Like, there's certain kinds of people who are best in small doses, and that's how actors are. And that's how actors have historically always been, right? Very protected interactions with the media, very few movies, and seeing this actor as a very exotic and kind of elevated thing. And when actors went on social media, they lost their star power, they lost their allure, and they've really struggled to get that power back. You know, there really aren't that many stars. When people talk about movies, they no longer say such and such movie starring so and so person. I've noticed boomers used to do that. Sometimes they still will, but often they'll only do it when referring to older works. Now it's such and such movie featuring IP from such and such universe, right? It's this movie in the Jurassic Park universe, or this movie in the Marvel universe, and the IP has now become bigger than the actors, because the actors made the mistake of listening to their agents and their managers and their film studios pushing them to get on social media. Johansson is notable because she resisted all of that, and she has a strong enough personality to say, no, I'm not going to go on social media. Are you still going to sign me or not?
Right.
They're like,
and
well, okay, we still want you, so I guess we'll sign you, and we'll just strike the Instagram requirement from the contract.
And I've noticed this in my personal social media behavior so I don't tend to post a whole lot on social media. I'm just not that kind of person. I don't care enough about any of you to tell you anything. Like, that's a me problem. We'll call that me being antisocial, not anti-social media. But you know, I actually go through and I clean people off I find annoying on social media, because there are people who are permanently online looking for a dopamine high, and they'll post stuff for controversy. They'll post stuff because they can't not post. They feel like they need to talk to the masses or whatever, and I just can't stand it. It lowers my opinion of their actual good works that they're putting out. I don't want to look at them because I'm sick of hearing this guy talk. And so sometimes reducing the amount of exposure someone has to you can be a benefit, because no one is perfect and we're all annoying sometimes, and you don't want to annoy people.
And just because you enjoyed your lunch doesn't mean you need to tell the world about it.
I mean, it's great.
Most of the time when you hear, a lot of people, I've heard some people complain, Thomas, when I listen to novel marketing, I get this big long to-do list of things to do, and it's exhausting. Here's something that is taking stuff off of your to-do list. You can just take that Facebook app and delete it off your phone. You can take Instagram and delete it off your phone. You'll have so much more time to do the things that actually make a difference when it comes to moving copies of your book and making your book better. Interacting with people in real life rather than the curated version of that person online is going to give you a much better sense of that real person, the person behind the mask, who's the person you're trying to thrill with your book.
And another thing is you're not as cool as you think you are. But people who just read your book and love it will think you're way cooler than you really are.
Now, Doug has a good question. He says, how does this relate to sharing in newsletters from your email list? I think sharing in newsletters on your email list is fine. And it's not that Scarlett Johansson does no media. So the equivalent of a newsletter would be Scarlett Johansson doing an interview with like a
in a professional setting. She's been coached, she's been glammed. It's a wholly different context, and that's your newsletter. You're editing it, you're glamming it, you're adding in graphics or whatever. I don't, but you know,
graphics are totally optional, but being interesting is not optional. So Doug, the rule of being interesting still applies. So it's not like, oh, well, I didn't talk about that lunch that I had on Facebook, but I did talk about it on my newsletter. It's like, not unless the restaurant caught on fire while you were there. Then maybe it's an interesting story. So it has to be interesting, and as long as it's interesting, put it in your newsletter.
Right. Well, some stuff going on online. There is a book marketing website. It's called Book Boost Architect, run by Jane Williford, that has been caught using a testimonial from A.K. Duboff that A.K. denies ever giving them. Apparently, they're also sending out emails in her identity to try to promote this book marketing website. It was called out by Rick Partlow and then a whole bunch of other authors that they are using false advertising to try to gain some visibility or try to. I don't know how good their marketing services are. Book marketing now has a bad, shtick to it. It's got a bad vibe because it's scummy and scammy. So just from looking from their marketing techniques, I would say Book Boost Architect is someone to avoid.
As a general rule, testimonials are not a useful tool for making a product decision. Like people are like, you need to put more testimonials on the novel marketing conference website. And somebody sent me a really nice one I'm planning to add. But I will say, for me, when I make purchasing decisions, I know that testimonials are cherry picked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have some service that's not a very good service, but they've had a few people who've had good experiences. And when it comes to education, the better way to make the decision rather than looking at testimonials is to sample the product somehow, whether that's a free trial or if the host has a podcast or a YouTube show or something like that. And the better testimonial is not what they have on their website. If you want a real good testimonial, you reach out to somebody yourself and be like, hey, you worked with so-and-so. What did you think? What was your experience? And you get that kind of personal experience. Or you get a testimonial on a third-party website. So people will often go on authormedia.social and they'll say, I was reached out to by such and such company, or I'm thinking about working with so-and-so. What has been your experience? And people will give testimonials as comments there. That kind of testimonial is super useful. Yeah. Often, if you've been active on authormedia.social, you know who these people are. And so their experience, like, I heard somebody saying bad things about Book Vault. What have been your experiences with Book Vault? And so people will share, right? That's way better than going to bookvault.com and seeing that Joanna Penn is
seeing their nice posted testimonials. And that's another thing with book reviews as well. And this is, I would throw this in as a caution, not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but I can identify reviews that were written by the author's friends, and usually who are authors themselves, because they'll say something like, this is a lit RPG progression fantasy with tropes of found family. Like, come on, man. No real people talk like this. You are clearly a buddy of this person trying to promote their book so that they'll promote your book.
Although for a review like that,
devaluing your review now, though. I'm skipping
no, but it's not about the review. It's not about the review. It's about Amazon categories. So you now can't put yourself in all 10 categories. Amazon places you in categories based off of the word selection of your reviewers. And so this is actually a technique of getting into categories that you otherwise can't get into, is you ask your reviewers to use those category names in their
You got to be careful, though. I was
for sure you have to be careful.
I'm speaking to a reader who part of the interview was, how much emphasis do you put on Amazon reviews? And she said, for some genres or subgenres, I barely put any, because you can tell that they're written by the friends or they're written by other professionals or bots. And so if there's too many of those, I skip the book, because this is an author trying to game the system and they didn't actually write a good book, And I go into this when I do I love that Oreo CEO video with all the tricks that Oreo is trying to pulling to sell Oreos. And the guy's just like, we make Oreos. It's a money factory. Why are any of you at work? Just go home. Like, if you have a good book that's like Oreos, people are going to buy it and they're going to leave organic reviews and they're going to love it. I don't think you need this many tricks.
Now, one thing I will say in potential defense of this company, one story I will share. I remember getting a very angry email from someone being like, you stole a blog post that I wrote and you posted it to your website. And they're like, how dare you? And this person was very, very angry. And what this person had forgotten was that he wrote that blog post for our website.
Oh my gosh.
So fortunately, I had the email from 6 years before where we had been emailing back and forth about the post. I was able to respond to it, and it went into his, and he was able to, because we both were on Gmail, so we were both able to see the thread, and then he was like, oh, I'm really sorry.
I hate it when I'm all mad, and then I'm like, oh, wait, I'm the idiot. How do I get out of this?
So I was really thankful, because if I didn't have that email, he would have genuinely thought I had stolen that blog post from him. He would not have believed me when I said, no, you gave me permission, because he didn't remember giving permission. I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but sometimes that is the case.
Right.
Especially if people do lots of endorsements. There's a lot of things going on. Our mind's very cluttered.
All right, real quick. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Cut you off. I thought you were done. Real quick, not going to dwell on this too much. There's a distributor of TTRPG rule books. What is TTRPG? Tabletop role-playing game. It's a big thing in fantasy and lit RPG. If a novel or a novel series gets big enough, everyone tries to look at making a TTRPG out of it. Well, Diamond, one of the largest distributors of these rule books, has filed to move its inventory to get rid of it without having to pay the publishers who sent them the books in the first place. Which means that these publishers, except for Hasbro, which is who does Dungeons and Dragons, now these smaller publishers who run Kickstarters or any of these other crowdfunding websites, they're now getting slammed with a whole bunch of returned inventory, which just blows their budgets, because you have to move inventory, and this is one of the largest distributors. So you just keep an eye on this kind of stuff. This is one of the pitfalls that comes from trying to move into this kind of business.
So let me break down kind of how this happens, because this happens fairly regularly, and it's one of the risks of selling books on consignment. So there's two different models that books are sold on in a retail environment. One is wholesale, where the retailer will buy 100 books, and the retailer will get a 60% discount, let's say. So the books are normally $10. The retailer will buy them at $4, and then the retailer can sell them at whatever price the retailer wants to sell them at, with the goal of recouping the costs and then making a profit. That's how I think we assume all bookstores work. But that's actually, I don't think, the most common method. The most common method is something called consignment, which is where the book is never owned by the bookstore.
Right.
So the bookstore takes possession of the book, but not ownership of the book. Ownership of the book is still with the publisher and the owner, and then it's either simultaneous, where the retailer owns it for a split second as it's sold to the customer, or it gets transferred straight to the customer. I remember us talking about this in business school. I don't remember exactly the mechanics. Doesn't matter though. The reality is, Walmart, for instance, a lot of things are in consignment. So if a Walmart burns down, it's not Walmart's inventory that it owns. A lot of that inventory is actually owned by the various manufacturers or distributors or what have you. And this is one of those things that's negotiated, and it's a risk. So consignment is taking on risk, because if the book fails to sell, the retailer will return the book to the publisher. And often you have to pay shipping on the way back. Sometimes you just have them tear off the front page and destroy the book, which is to save money on shipping. And so everyone knows that that's a risk of it being returned. And what they don't realize is that the other risk is it'll be Borders Books, and a creditor comes in and just seizes everything and sells it against their debts. And you're like, wait, no, I own that. And you're like, so we'll see you in court. You're like, I don't want to go to court. It's like, then it's ours now. And so this is a risk. It's just a part of doing business. Be careful as you negotiate these contracts. If you just sign a boilerplate contract, it's almost always going to be in the favor of whoever handed you the contract. I do have a tool called Not a Literary Agent. It's a Patron Toolbox tool. Yes, everyone playing bingo, you can check your box.
I didn't do bingo this time.
It's great. It's great for reviewing contracts and finding hidden gotchas. And I've been very impressed with it in my tests. What's next?
Well, speaking of social media and staying on it too much, the Orc City meme goes viral, and what this tells us about authors on social media. I really went back and forth about whether this was going to be a news story or not, because most author drama is something I want to steer clear of and
he
not
snuck this in,
clutter the feed.
I would have cut this story.
I actually do think there's value in this, though, so we'll talk about it. Fantasy
Let me
author
know in the chat when he's done with this story if you think this is a good segment or not.
I don't care. Fantasy author John Douglas tweeted about the character Fat Man from one of Hideo Kojima's video games. Hideo Kojima has a huge fan base when it comes to making video games. Well, that fan base went after Douglas on X and Reddit, and then one of them decided to post a picture of his first page. On the first page of his book, which I'm offering a personal opinion here, not the author update opinion or even Thomas's opinion, I wound up not finishing that book because I didn't like it very much. The first page is not very strong. It's not terrible, but it's not very strong. And the name of the city of the orcs was Orc City. And so X and Reddit jumped all over this and started eating this first page alive. It wound up going up in the millions of views. Tons of engagement, tons of shares, tons of fighting on X and Reddit and stuff. And people were trying to mock his writing ability, and that activated the whole rest of the indie community, and they came in to defend him, which was funny to me because the defense was, hey, it's his first book. It's not necessarily great writing, but have you seen this bad writing over here? So the speculation was that this surge in X attention resulted in more sales of his book, The Black Crown. I don't see any indicator of that. I went into the numbers on Amazon. I checked his sales ranking. I checked his reviews and ratings and stuff. I don't see any evidence that there was a surge of positive attention towards his book. Of course, he did get review bombed. His Goodreads rating, you can't even look at it anymore. I think it's like a 2.0 right now. Amazon, he's like a 4.0. From a lot of the 1 stars that he got, not actually from this incident, but from another incident he did 3 months ago when he went after Target for shelving a bunch of fantasy books intended for women, which I'm just like, yeah, Target sells to women. So he tends to jump into a lot of controversy on X. There was Comicsgate, there was the whole Target photo thing, and then there was this recent Fat Man.
So there's some idiot who's making fights online. What's the takeaway here?
The takeaway, no, here's the thing, because I see indie authors on X saying all publicity is good publicity, and it is not. Because it is cutting away segments of people that might have enjoyed his book, and his book is admittedly genre fiction, not intended to be Tolkien. It's not intended to be deep. It's supposed to be more like Dragonlance or, the Legends of Drizzt level fantasy. It's not deep. It's just adventure and designed to be consumed that way. The thing is that by negatively punching up at other creators like Hideo Kojima or like, other people that you don't like, you are now alienating segments of the population you now can't reach positively.
I think
they won't listen to you.
Yeah, I think the real issue, because being in the middle of a firestorm can increase sales. I don't think it's a good strategy, but the nature of the firestorm is important. So if the firestorm is that you're a scam, right? So we were talking about some marketing firm earlier about how they're not a good company, right? That kind of bad publicity is genuinely bad publicity. And if everyone is saying, oh, this first page is poorly written, that is legitimately bad publicity that will hurt you because it strikes at the very core offering that you have as an author, which is writing books that are interesting that people want to read. So you have to be careful when picking fights. There's always somebody. It's like X demands a blood sacrifice. There's always some indie author who's getting the ire of X today, and these cancel mobs picking on whoever had the worst behavior. I find it very wearisome.
You've also got, there's a couple other factors here. It's like, why are you jumping to a bunch of controversy when you have one novel that you wrote 3 years ago, and then you're trying to position yourself as an influencer or a creator in this sphere, and then you start getting piled on? I don't understand why that would be a valid strategy, because I don't see it working out. The sales rank hasn't changed enough. If it was like Devin Erickson, who got cut out of that sci-fi competition because of his politics or whatever, and his sales jumped through the roof. But he wasn't trying to start controversy. He didn't even know he was in the sale. His wife put him in it. But his sales jumped through the roof, and that's fantastic for him. That controversy worked out for him. He wasn't seeking it. His sales went through the roof. That's not happened here. This book has 80 ratings or reviews on Amazon the last time I looked at it, of over 3 years, which is fine, But you would think from the level of social media engagement that he's getting that it would be much higher, and that's what indie authors are assuming. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter.
And social media engagement does not translate to book sales.
That's
There's
what
a
I'm
circle
saying.
of people who are watch TV and who read books, and there's a tiny overlap. There's a circle of people who spend time on social media and a circle of people who spend time reading books, and there's not very much overlap. Your hardcore readers are not spending a lot of time with like obscure Twitter drama. And it brings up the question, do you even own what you buy?
Correct.
So
Ubisoft destroying goodwill left and right like the bosses they are. In their terms and conditions, they've added a line that says if Ubisoft shuts down a game's servers, the players who have bought the game are to uninstall the game and then destroy any physical copies that they own. You are not doing yourself any favors, man. Now, I think what they're doing is probably trying to protect themselves against influencers, because there's been a lot of flops like Cyberpunk and stuff like that. They're trying to protect themselves against influencers continuing to create bad publicity of the video game company over time after they've discontinued the servers, and they're just still going to keep hammering the video game company with this content after the game is no longer even supported by the company anymore.
Well, this is all part of the Stop Killing Games movement.
Yeah.
Which...
Yeah.
The only connection to this for authors is to understand that nobody owns an ebook of your book. They own a license to an ebook.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways where that license can get revoked and their quote unquote ownership goes away. And so the only way to really own a copy of a book is to own a physical copy. So the audiobook and the ebook aren't real in any real sense. In fact, nothing on your computer you own. You don't own the software. You hardly own the hardware. You don't own the documents on it. Like the legal apparatus built around computers is so anti-human as to be like you can't even wrap your mind around it. And you've got these big long terms of service that you can't read and you can't negotiate and that are not optional. And those have been used to just steamroll over humans. There's not a lot we can do about that at the moment, but there is some exciting.
All of you were waiting for it. You knew it was coming. We
AI
made it 40
news!
minute in,
Grock 4 is here!
No. No.
It is
the latest,
new...
bestest, biggest, most awesomest AI model.
This is the biggest leap that I've seen in months in AI. And what's most impressive is that it's from XAI, which had, it was behind by like 2 or 3 years. So Elon Musk's first AI company is OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT. But Elon Musk and Sam Altman had some drama, and Elon Musk decided that it was best if he just left, aka Sam Altman decided it was best if he just left. And so for a couple of years, he kind of was on the sidelines. Tesla's a big AI company, so he was attracting AI talent to Tesla, and they are figuring out self-driving cars, which is a big AI challenge. But finally, Elon Musk couldn't take it anymore. He started his own AI company called XAI. The company took off, became very wealthy enough to buy Twitter from him, actually. So XAI now owns Twitter. So it was Elon Musk selling from one of his companies to another of his companies, which is why I didn't pick up more news. But in just the last year and a half, they've gone from being nothing to having an LLM that wins on almost every benchmark, number one, better than every other tool. And it's been fascinating watching the AI news, because in the AI world, a lot of people really don't like Elon Musk because of his politics. But in every single one of them, they're all kind of shaking their heads because they can't deny how good Grock 4 is in outperforming ChatGPT and outperforming Claude and outperforming Gemini. Now, this is not the Grock you interact with on X. The Grock you interact with on X is Grock 3. And we can get into reasoning versus non-reasoning models. So the idea with Grock 4 is that it's a reasoning model, so it uses a lot of tokens thinking about its answer.
And you do pay for it.
If you have an API like what I use with the Patron Toolbox, or my vendors use serving it up, then those tokens are output tokens. The thinking is output tokens, which is the most expensive kind of token, or one of the most expensive kind of tokens. So I have been doing some tests with Grock. I've been just stunned at how smart it is. I have noticed that models tend to be best when they first come out, and then the tuning tends to make them worse over time. So there's kind of this shine that comes off of a model. So right now, Grock 4 is very shiny. And I am also predicting, y'all can score me on this, that this is the beginning of new model season. So over the next month and a half, 6 to 8 weeks, I'm predicting that every single AI company is going to release a new, better, bestest model.
And you will hear all about it here. Against my will, we will talk about all of them.
So people on authormedia.social are using it for editing, where it can evaluate a manuscript and give really useful feedback on how to make the manuscript better. And they are using it for research. It's always been really good for research, and it's even better now at evaluating that research and doing things with it. I've done some tests. One thing, Grock 4, if you're paying for it, it's very slow. All of those reasoning tokens take time. You can actually watch it if you're using the website. You can watch it think in real time, which is fascinating, because it will first work to understand your question, and then it will start to define the parameters of the answer, and then it will start doing research and grabbing websites, and you can see all of that happen. But it's not like talking to Grock 3 or to ChatGPT where you just get the answer right back. I mean, it's a couple of minutes sometimes to get the answer. And the context window is a bit small. So it can handle a 150,000 word book, but it can't handle a 300,000, or it can't handle 3 100,000 word books. So if you're trying to create a compendium for your series, it can't take the context window that large. If that's the sort of thing you're wanting, Gemini 2.5 Pro is the better model, or just use one of the Patron Toolbox tools. Those all use a Gemini model, which is why they're able to handle large works so well.
Now, there are a couple of concerns that have popped up on social media regarding Grock 4. And this is one that I kind of share, because the source input for an AI model is a huge issue, and Grock has access to all of X. X is not a good place. The humans on X are terrible, and the bots have learned from the humans and are now doing better than the humans were. You do have one thing that was pointed out recently on the Daily Wire was how anti-Semitic Grock 4 is, because of how anti-Semitic a lot of bot X is. And you can actually throw in questions and stuff like that, and they'll come out and tell you the Jews are the problem. And I'm like, I don't think you can say that. So my major issue is structurally, Grock 4 pulls from X as one of its input sources, as a major input source. And X is a terrible place to learn anything from.
This is a long tradition of AIs getting radicalized by being on Twitter. Going all the way back to, I think the first time this happened was in like 2014 or 2015. Microsoft Labs put a bot on Twitter at the time, and it took like 24 or 36 hours for Twitter users to radicalize this bot so bad.
Do you want Ultron? Because this is how you get Ultron.
So,
humanity got to get wiped out. Humanity got to go.
Tools have no. A tool cannot will. It cannot do good or bad. It is used by the user, and good people will use tools to do good things, and bad people will use tools to do bad things. And in a lot of these extreme examples, what was happening was the X user was trying to get Grock to say something naughty. And so it was, because one of the problems with AIs, and this is across the board, is that they have a tendency towards sycophancy, where they want to make you happy and they want to say what you want them to say. And so if you can imply in your question what you want the answer to be, they will give you that answer, which is why you have to be really, really careful asking AI for feedback on your book, because the AI is going to tell you that your book is amazing and beautiful and dazzling, and you are beautiful and dazzling, and everything that you have written has been turned to gold because you're just so amazing, and please will you like me? I'm a sycophantic AI, and I want you to click the thumbs up at the bottom of this interaction.
Oh, senpai.
Now some of the apparently the only thing that changed was there was a line in Grock's programming about political correctness. It was added as like, don't worry about being politically correct in your answers. And that was the only thing that changed in the code. And suddenly the safeguards to keep it from saying politically incorrect things were gone. And so an anti-Semitic person could get it to say an anti-Semitic thing. But
and they gave problem with that.
They gave it a prompt to get it to that point.
Right. And I don't have a problem with that. I think the politically correct thing is so vague. And it depends on which side of politics you're on as to whether something is incorrect. So I think it's vague. I think it's a good thing that it's gone. But if it is drawing from X as a source point, you shouldn't learn anything from X. I would never let my kids learn anything from X. And the fact that my kids are going to be using AI in the future to learn things, and that AI will be drawing from X is a problem for me, because you have a polluted data set that you're now pulling from, and you're going to get some wonky outputs.
I don't know if the compendium of knowledge on X is in the training data for Grock, but Grock can search X in finding answers. So if it's using its deep search mode. But the other place that all the other LLMs use is Reddit, which is just as bad. Right?
It really is.
Licenses its content from Reddit. And so this is so one of the reasons why I've been so intense with AI. And Alexander McCrease, who I've had on the show, I talk about his work in AI quite a bit, why he's doing it too, because you can build good AIs and bad AIs, and it's really important that people of goodwill build AIs that do good things.
Yeah.
And I've been doing tests on various AI models to see what kinds of bad things that they're willing to do. Some of it I probably shouldn't go into, but this is something I'm watching very closely. And like ChatGPT will help you break the law if it sees the law as being politically incorrect.
Yep.
And that's as much as I'll say here. I'm doing an Obscure No More office hours immediately after this, and if you want to know more, come join us on the Obscure No More office hours. You can ask a question.
Speaking of Grock 4, in the past 2 weeks, there have been a lot of movement in the political sphere, and one of those is that the big, beautiful bill passed.
Which is its official name. That's not a nickname. That's literally what they called it.
What are we... What? Oh, man. It's major tax reform legislation that was signed into law on July 4th, 2025. This bill primarily extends and makes permanent many provisions from the 2017 Tax Cuts and the Jobs Act, while introducing new changes aimed at reducing tax burdens, simplifying reporting, and boosting deductions for individuals and businesses. I'm going to run through a quick summary of how this benefits authors, and then Thomas is going to take off. One thing is a permanent extension of lower individual tax rates. Self-employed authors do pay taxes on their net business income. Lower rates will reduce your overall tax bill, usually, if your income falls in mid to higher brackets. For instance, a single author with $100,000 in taxable income might save several $1,000s compared to the pre-this rates. Enhanced and permanent qualified business income deduction, the QBI. Indie authors often qualify for QBI on their royalties and sales income after expenses. This can reduce your tax rate by about 20% on qualified income, which is long-term savings. Another one is...
This is too technical here. Let me jump in. So,
you think I'm being too technical? Everybody strap in. This is going to be awesome.
No, I'm going to... In general, there's been a lot of drama over the Big Beautiful Bill, and if all you know about the Big Beautiful Bill is from the media, you would think that it's this big deficit-killing thing. When most of what's in the Big Beautiful Bill is just keeping changes from happening. So things that were set to expire are now no longer expiring. And actually, I was doing analysis on the Big Beautiful Bill and what the tax implications would be for authors. And I did this analysis using Grock 3 before Grock 4 came out. And then I did it again using Grock 4. Because part of what I was trying to decide is there enough here to even bring in a CPA to talk about it? because we did a whole episode on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, because back in 2017, that bill had a huge impact on authors in a lot of ways. But because most of this bill just continues what happened in 2017, if you've already optimized your tax strategy for the status quo, the big beautiful bill doesn't impact you very much, actually. But there are some things that do impact authors, and they're almost all for the good. So the typical author is going to see their taxes probably go down by about 5%. Overall. So the qualified business deduction is being expanded a little bit. It's a little bit more generous. One of the biggest impacts, and Jonathan, I know you're going to be excited about this, is that the reporting threshold for 1099s is being raised from 600 to 2,000.
Oh my gosh.
So because if you hired a cover designer to design you a cover and you paid them $800, you would now have to file a 1099 with the cover designer and file it with the IRS. Boosting that up to 2,000 is going to mean that for almost all authors, almost all of the time, hiring professionals to help them with specific things is going to be under that threshold. And if you're spending more than 2,000, at that point, it does make sense to file the 1099. Like the hassle is worth it. What you don't want to do is a ton of paperwork for a bunch of really small transactions.
Right.
And I am really relieved about this paperwork requirement. We've also see an increased deductions for business expenses and assets. So it's slightly easier to take deductions. You can take slightly larger deductions. The amortization requirements are being streamlined. I'm going to skim over this because for a lot of folks, this doesn't apply. One thing that applies for me specifically is that it's increasing the child tax credit, which I really appreciate as somebody with lots of children.
Repopulate the earth.
So I'm looking over some of these other changes. The big thing is this is a lot of drama for not a lot of change.
Yeah.
So the reason why the Congressional Budget Office said this was going to create such a big fiscal drop was because it was assuming that these would expire and the tax rates would go up. They also weren't looking at the money coming in with tariffs. So we've already raised like $500 billion in tariffs. I think one of those things is $300 billion already just in the last like 3 months. And so, anyway, I don't want to get into all of that, but the standard deduction is increasing to $15K or $31K if you're married filing joint, and so that's going to reduce your income and
taxable income.
Yeah. So you're also able to get it's slightly better depreciation on assets. So you could fully deduct a $5,000 laptop,
which is a big deal.
Yeah. So if y'all if I see that there's some confusion on like how to apply this from a tax planning strategy, I might bring on a CPA to talk about it. One interesting thing is AI has not made CPAs any less busy. So there was 30,000 CPAs in the country back in 1975. And most of them did most of the time was using abacuses to create spreadsheets. Or they got a typewriter, a 4-function calculator later in the 70s, and it would make them go really fast. And then VisiCalc came out, and they could make a spreadsheet like this. And the number of CPAs in the country went from 35,000 CPAs in the country to 1 million CPAs in the country.
No, I thought it was going to take their jobs, not make more jobs.
So this is the same thing I've noticed with graphic designers. So I'll hear non-graphic designers talk about, AI is going to put all the graphic designers out of business. But every actual graphic designer I've talked to, they're so busy you can hardly talk to them. They're like swamped. They're like not even emailing you back. You email them like, I want to hire you. And they're so busy, they don't even email you back because they're so busy. So I'm not convinced this AI job apocalypse is real. In most cases, it is real in some cases. Copywriters legitimately got hit. And if you were a blog post writer back in the day, now people are using AI for that, and that job really did go away. But in a lot of other spaces, it's creating demand, like editors. There's a new kind of editor called a slop editor. I think I may be coining
You're
this
coining
term.
this, yes.
So there's a lot of people who are using AI to write a book, and then they want to hire an editor to take the AI slop that they wrote because they want to tell their story, but they don't want it to feel AI. And so they're going to hire an editor to carve that slop into something presentable for humans. And so it's something in between a developmental editor and a ghostwriter. And the demand for this is rising, and it's going to go through the roof. So if you're an editor and you're looking to make some money, becoming a slop editor or offering that as a service could be really lucrative. We may need a more flattering term than slop editor. I think that's a
Give me your slop.
feed me your tired
Throw
and your
it
poor.
in the bucket.
I can turn your slop into a masterpiece.
Speaking of AI slop, YouTube has made the decision to demonetize videos that have too much AI content or content derived from other creators. So if you are looking, well, we talked about this strategy, I think, 2 weeks ago, is if you're going to have this kind of reading your own audiobook and you do an AI kind of video playing while you're reading your book, YouTube may demonetize that now. You need to really check into the terms and conditions to see how you might be affected by that. Now, if you don't care about being monetized, then it's not going to be a big deal for you. But YouTube's not going to pay you anymore for AI videos, AI music. It's just that business strategy may not be viable anymore. So if you're looking to generate a whole bunch of content for YouTube for the purpose of being monetized, that's not going to work.
Yeah, PJ is suggesting slop ghostwriter. I think the problem is the word slop. I think we need a better word for slop.
No, I like it.
Slop. It may be exactly the word we need, though, because somebody knows what they have as slop. Or maybe slop fixer instead of editor. I don't know.
I will take your slop and turn it into a freaking diamond.
So the YouTube thing, there's been an explosion of AI music on YouTube. And I think this is an important parallel for authors because the same thing is happening with AI written stories. So a lot of music is AI written. And there's YouTube channels that will create 2 hours of new music every day. Brand new music that no one's ever heard before. And some of these channels have gone on to become incredibly successful. The top one has 31 million subscribers on YouTube. So more people want to listen to that AI generated music than want to watch this show. Speaking of which, please like and subscribe. Help us catch up to the
Help
AI
us catch
music.
up to the slop.
Yeah. What is the name of that channel, the AI channel that's got all of the it's a synth wave band. Masters of Prophecy, I think is the name of it. And Cleanup Ghostwriter. I like that. That's a really good term. So that is really flooding the zone on YouTube. This because you're paid by the minute, and if you're putting out 2 hours of new content every day, and you've got a dozen different accounts and a dozen different micro genres, it really is slop, and you get what you incentivize. So YouTube's not banning it. So crackdown is a bit strong of a term, but they are demonetizing it. So
yeah,
now
they're not going to pay for it.
if you're going to do it, you're going to do it out of love, because there's another kind of AI generated music, which is Helldivers music. Yeah. Where fans of Helldivers want music that's a love song between Eagle One and the Pelican. Or there's a whole album of music that's Helldivers music, but not for Helldivers. It's Helldivers music for the bots. So it's the Iron Legion, and it's talking about how evil Super Earth is and how they must crush managed democracy, right? So this is music that would have never been made by Nashville, right? It's not commercially viable. But for people in the Helldivers community, which is a video game if y'all don't know, it's really
we've
fun.
talked about it before.
And it's memes. You put the memes into the music, and it's a way of bonding with fellow fans. And this Helldivers channel and the Helldivers music, I don't think will be affected too much by this YouTube crackdown, because if somebody's making a love song between Eagle One and the Pelican, which are the two airplanes that like protect you while you play this game. They're doing that out of it is in a sense a work of art, because it is motivated by love. They're not just creating 2 hours of Helldivers music every day like these other channels.
It's fan fiction, it's fan art, it's it's because you love it so much you want to contribute to it and have other people enjoy it, and it gets talked about in the community and shared around, and that's why they're doing it. They're not doing
Right.
it as a YouTube monetization strategy. So this is not going to be impacted by that kind of thing. If you have people who are making fan art or fan music using AI of your books or whatever, I mean, this isn't going to impact that very much.
And there's a lot of people who are like, well, this music, it doesn't have anything to say. It's not real music. But there's a lot of people who are
You just put it on in the background while you're working.
there's a lot of people who want to listen to this kind of music in the background. In fact, I came across, it was like medieval, like Celtic music in ancient Celtic languages. And as I'm listening to this, I'm like, this is really pretty. And after like 30 minutes, I'm like, this is really pretty. And I think AI wrote this.
Those aren't real words.
2 hours every day of this Celtic music. It sounds Celtic. It's got that Celtic sound. It's good in the background. There's a lot of people who are fatigued by what Nashville has to say, right? What the big music labels have to say. There's only a certain kind of number of viewpoints that are really permissible in that. And so this is going to open up more viewpoints. And so in some ways, it's going to, I think, be good for music, because a lot of what Nashville does is super duper derivative. We're like, this AI slop is derivative. It was like, have you listened to the radio?
Yeah.
It's not that different than it was 5 years ago. The songs are all changed, but this music hasn't really changed because it's all singing about the same sorts of things. So this we'll keep following this. I'll be curious what the impact is. I think it will reduce the rate at which this music is added, and I think it will force the human creators to kind of come out of the shadows a little bit more, because the more that they put themselves in their art, the more likely they are to get monetized. And it will be interesting if it hits authors, because I know authors who make a lot of money from YouTube minutes watched, and this could really break that approach to monetizing an audiobook.
Right. Last story we're going to talk about today, and this is a big one. This might actually be my favorite one. Cloudflare's AI crawler policy. So on July 1st, Cloudflare, which is a leading internet infrastructure and security company, they implemented a policy that mandates AI crawlers, or the bots that crawl through the internet looking for information, be blocked by default across all websites that use their services. This reverses the previous opt-out model, where website owners had to actively block crawlers. Now, AI companies must obtain explicit permission from the website owners to scrape their content and then specify the purpose of the crawler, so what it's going to be used for. There's also introducing a pay-per-crawl model, which is in a private beta right now, which allows website owners to charge AI companies for access to their content. So, summarizing everything, this is a huge shift in the way AI is going to be able to pull information. You need to be very careful with the way that you treat it. This is now a balance act that you have to do. For instance, we already been talking about for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on how AI is going to be used to find your books. Okay, SEO is shifting, and the way your stuff is going to be found is through AI, which means the bots need to be able to find your website. So if you're terrified of AI, and suddenly your website no longer lets AI crawl through it, and you're like, oh, good, no one's finding my book. Why doesn't anyone talk about me? Well, it's because you didn't let the bots in, okay? And then there are some people who are like, no, I'm going to make them pay so that they can, they can't have access to my IP unless they pay for it. Well, they're not going to pay for it in most instances. You're too small. It's just not, they're not going to pay you any money, which means, again, you won't be found.
This story matters a lot more than a lot of the anti-AI stories we've covered.
Yes.
Because most of the anti-AI stories we've covered have been such and such organization files a lawsuit that, spoiler alert, they're going to lose. And if they win, it will be 10 years in the future. That's not what this is. This is actually blocking the bots from your website, because there's a chance your website runs on Cloudflare. Mine all do. All of my websites run on Cloudflare. And I have been logging into Cloudflare regularly, checking to see when they turn this on, because I don't want it. This is my competitive advantage for the bots to be able to see my website. And for authors, because you don't make money selling articles, so who this is most helpful for is like a newspaper who wants to block the bots from the articles so that they can get advertising dollars, selling eyeballs to advertisers. You as an author make money selling books, and your website is a tool to help you sell books, and you really don't care if somebody comes to your website and buys your book or talks to ChatGPT and ChatGPT recommends your book and then they buy the book that way. I mean, obviously you'd prefer for them to come to your website if you could get their email address as a part of that interaction, but it also costs you some money for them to come to your website. It's a fraction of a penny, depending on your host. You may not ever see that, but I see it. I pay a lot of money in hosting. And if you're using Cloudflare right now, log into your account. The very first tab on the left underneath Overview is something called AI Audit. And it will tell you how many bots, which bots have come to your website, and how many times they've visited your website. And then there's a little button that says block. And so you can be like, you know what? I don't like DeepSeek. Although I don't think DeepSeek's on here. So you can be like, I don't like Grock. So I'm going to block Grock. Who I think this is most going to help is Google. Because I think the Google search bot is going to slurp up all this info. Nobody's blocking Google. And it could be a real win for Gemini. Google will have a choice whether to not be evil and have the Gemini bot separate from the normal Google bot.
Oh, gee, I wonder what they're going to pick.
What's the one thing more scary than a company whose tagline is "Don't be evil"? A company whose tagline used to be "Don't be evil," and then they got rid of it.
Why's that gone?
So it is interesting to be able to see how many bots have come to my website. Right now, Claude has gone up to the top. I don't know what the timeline is for this, but I've been watching this. I do encourage you to, if this gets turned on for you on Cloudflare, to turn it off if you're an author, because there's basically no advantage for you, like what Jonathan is saying.
Yeah.
You don't have enough content that's worth selling. But I think this is a really savvy play for Cloudflare because they're trying to insert themselves financially in between AI companies and the data that those AI companies want. Which could be, I mean, even if Cloudflare's just taking a fraction of that money, it could be really beneficial. And if you are anti-AI, running your domain through Cloudflare is a much more effective way of blocking the bots, the AI bots, from your website than a robots.txt rule. Because they don't have to follow the robots.txt rule. But with Cloudflare, they're just blocked. They just can't access it. Yeah. When the bot goes to your website, they get an error. When the human goes to your website, they see the actual website. Cloudflare is a very reputable company. Somebody was saying, you know, they have a lot of cloud. They really do. Something like 30% of the internet traffic runs through Cloudflare servers. They're a very, very powerful company, and they're positioned to leverage this well.
My prediction is that authors who are anti-AI and take advantage of this and don't, or even just don't know about it and don't click the box, they're going to be lost in obscurity and they're not going to be found. The whole point of all the stuff that we're doing for marketing is to be found. And if you can't be found because you didn't click the box, and so bots don't come to your website to deliver, you know, it's like ants. They come to your website and they take a little piece of information and they take it and they walk it back to the person who was asking for it in the first place. If you don't let the ants in, suddenly no one is getting pieces of your stuff, and they are getting pieces of other people's stuff. If you're going to stay competitive, if you're going to be found, if you're going to have exposure, then you need to make sure that you're available for the bots to crawl on your site. I know it freaks you out. You're like, they're going to steal my stories. They're going to steal my ideas. They're going to steal my IP. They're going to steal. No one cares. Okay? I worked in Intel for a long time. Everyone was scared of the NSA when I was working in the NSA. Okay? No one cares. All right, you're too small to really worry about. Who should worry about this would be like Joe Abercrombie or, you know, big guys that are already being pirated and have been pirated for a while now. So if you have to worry about piracy, then this will be an issue for you. Most of us don't have to worry about that. You need to make sure these things can come in. You need to encourage them to come in, like PJ is saying. I'm going to leave cheese and crackers out for the bots to come.
And I will say, if you're running on WordPress, like I recommend, and you're using Yoast SEO, which I recommend, Yoast SEO has a new feature. I think it's called LLMs.txt, which is a special page specifically for LLMs to show them content on your website in a more LLM-friendly way. You have to toggle it on yourself. It's not enabled by default. It doesn't work very well yet, but if you toggle it on now as Yoast SEO updates, which it does automatically in the background, it will work better, and you will kind of put out the red carpet for the bots. I've got to move to the Obscure No More office hours. So I've got to jump off, but do donate to ADRN. We're now shifting into rebuilding modes. There are people who've lost everything.
Yes.
They've lost their homes. They've lost their families. And ADRN is going to be there helping with the rebuilding process. If you donate any amount to ADRN, just email me your receipt and I will give you a special link that will unlock a free month of the Patron Toolbox. I personally vouch for ADRN. I've worked with them for a long time. Back when I had my radio show, they were the ones I would work with and recommend. So I really like them. I know people who work there personally.
This is an opportunity. This is an opportunity. Yep. You can sell books and donate some of the proceeds. It worked for this burger place, okay? Yep. You can sell books to people in the area. All right, donate part of the proceeds, all whatever, and get yourself visibility that way. So that's a very valid strategy at this time too.
So live long, prosper, and if you want to keep the bots away, now you know how to do it.